It was the kind of day that starts off warm but feels cold anyway, not because of the weather, but because of what's waiting on the other side of the front door. My heels clicked against the driveway as I stepped out of the cab, my dress catching slightly on the doorframe. Pale blue chiffon, my mother's favorite color. She picked it out. Actually said it was safe, simple, and doesn't draw attention. I didn't ask for her opinion, but when she calls me, it's rarely to ask how I'm doing. It's usually instructions. The church loomed ahead, big, white, full of flowers and people who hadn't looked me in the eye in over a year. My sister's wedding, and I was the last one to walk in. I paused at the bottom of the steps. The music was already playing inside some soft classical tune, the kind that's supposed to make everyone tear up, but all I felt was tightness in my throat, like I was choking on something I couldn't see. A little girl in a pink dress pushed past me, holding her mother's hand. Her curls bounced. She looked happy, unafraid. That used to be me once. Too running to my sister, grabbing her hand, always thinking she'd pull me into something exciting. But somewhere between birthdays and breakups, college and moving out, the gap between us widened. And then, it just stayed that way. I walked in. Every pew was filled. People turned and looked. A few polite smiles. My mother's tight-lipped glance from the second row. She nodded. That was her idea of a greeting. My father didn't look at me at all. And then, there was my sister, Samantha, standing at the altar in a shimmering white dress, lips painted in a careful rose shade, veil pulled back to reveal that perfectly controlled smile she always wore when the cameras were near. Her eyes landed on me. I smiled. She didn't. And just like that, I was 15 again, holding her hair back while she cried about some boy who broke her heart only to be called a leech the next morning when I told Mom what happened. "You always twist things," she said back then. "You're just jealous." That word followed me around for years like a shadow. But I'm not here to ruin anything. I told myself, I'm here because I was invited. Even if the invitation came 2 weeks late and after my cousin mentioned they thought I wasn't coming, I sat quietly in the last row. The ceremony went on. Vows were said, kisses were exchanged. And by the time the organ played the final note, people were on their feet clapping, throwing petals. I followed the crowd to the reception, which was held in a grand old estate outside of town, white tents, hanging lights, gold cutlery, the kind of wedding Pinterest dreams about. I took a glass of champagne and found a small table tucked near the back, behind one of the floral centerpieces that probably cost more than my rent. I watched. Not bitterly, just observing. That's when I heard it, the laugh. Not just any laugh. My sister's. Sharp. Mocking. I turned just in time to see her clink glasses with 2 bridesmaids and lean in. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. She came. I didn't think she'd actually show up. I mean, come on, who wants the family joke at their wedding? And then they laughed again. I froze. Something inside me, not anger exactly, but something colder slid down my spine like ice water. That word again. Joke. Not sister. Not guest. Not even black sheep. Just a joke. I felt the sting in my eyes, but I swallowed it. Because here's the thing about being called a joke long enough eventually. You learn to listen silently, but you also learn to observe everything. I had seen something, a few weeks ago. Something small. At first, a receipt, backdated, attached to my father's email thread. A payment to a catering service in Vermont. Not here. I only noticed because he'd asked me to fix his printer. He still can't figure out how to scan things, and the document popped up. "What's this one?" I asked. "Just an old job we canceled," he said. But it wasn't canceled. The same caterer was here today. Different name. Different logo. Same billing ID. I'd kept that document. Something about the way he brushed it off had felt slippery. And there was more. A few things didn't add up. Flowers being switched last minute. Samantha's fiancé's name coming up in an article I saw through my company's internal risk scan flagged for suspicious transactions tied to a friend of his from law school. At the time, I didn't think much of it. People party. People get involved in dumb stuff. But now, with champagne in my hand and my sister laughing at me from her golden throne, now, I remembered. And I made a choice. I walked to the edge of the tent, pulled out my phone, and texted a friend. He worked in financial crimes. Good man. Discreet. Still want that tip about Sam's fiancé's last 3 partners and the Shell Catering Company I'm at the wedding. Real-time access. His reply came almost instantly. Send it. All of it. I hit send, then deleted the message, then walked calmly back to my seat and waited. I didn't need revenge. I just wanted the truth to matter again. And that night, it did. But that's for later. Right now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been called a joke by someone you loved and stayed quiet? Have you ever stood in a room full of family and still felt like a stranger? Please share your story below. Maybe it's time we talk about it gently, together. The reception didn't stop. The music kept playing. The waiters kept pouring. And Samantha kept smiling. From the outside, everything was perfect. But behind that thin layer of glitter and gold, something had shifted. I could feel it. Like the moment before a storm when the wind changes direction and the sky holds its breath. I stayed in my seat. I didn't make a scene. I didn't need to. Because some storms don't come with thunder, they arrive quietly, like a knock on the shoulder. That knock came about 45 minutes later. 2 men in dark suits entered the tent. Not dramatic, just firm, focused. They didn't shout. They didn't flash badges. They simply walked in, scanned the room, and approached the long table where Samantha's new husband, Ryan, was laughing with his groomsmen. One of them leaned in close, said something to Ryan, and handed him a folded piece of paper. Ryan's expression changed immediately. The color drained from his face. He stood up too quickly, knocking over his wine glass. It spilled across the white tablecloth like a wound. Samantha blinked, confused. She reached for his arm. He pulled away. No, he muttered. Just loud enough for me to hear from the back. No, what she said. Her voice rising, but he didn't answer. One of the suited men gently took his elbow and led him away. Out the side of the tent, into the night. The other followed. The music stopped. Everyone stared. Samantha just stood there, frozen. Her hand still outstretched, her mouth slightly open. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt nothing toward her. Not guilt, not longing, not even satisfaction. Just space. The kind of space that opens up when something heavy lifts off your chest and you finally take a deep breath. People started murmuring. A few guests stood. My mother rose from her seat and hurried toward the side exit, calling Samantha's name. No answer. The DJ awkwardly restarted the music, some upbeat jazz tune that couldn't have been more out of place. I sipped my champagne and watched it all. I wasn't proud of what I'd done, but I wasn't ashamed either. Because I hadn't made anything up. I hadn't ruined her day out of jealousy or spite. I'd just told the truth. And in families like mine, where image is everything, where silence is currency, the truth is the most dangerous thing you can offer. It took them about 20 minutes to try and smooth it over. One of the bridesmaids, Tasha, I think her name, was tapped a fork against a glass and made some announcement about a minor misunderstanding and how the groom would be right back. But he didn't come back. Neither did my father. Eventually, The crowd was ushered inside the estate, where the cake was already cut and plated. The open bar never stopped. Some people danced. Some didn't. My mother sat at a corner table, dabbing her temple with a napkin, her lips pressed so tight I thought they might vanish. And then, Samantha walked in. Her dress was a little wrinkled now. Her makeup wasn't perfect anymore. And that carefully rehearsed smile, gone. She scanned the room and walked straight to me. The crowd pretended not to notice, but everyone did. She stopped a few feet away from my chair. Her voice was quiet, almost brittle. "You did this?" I looked up at her, did what her eyes glistened, but not from tears, from fury, the kind that simmers under polished skin. "You couldn't stand that it wasn't about you. You've always wanted to ruin things." I exhaled slowly. "No, Sam. I just stopped protecting the lie." She blinked, stunned into silence. I stood up, held my ground. "You made me feel invisible for years, like I was some sad, embarrassing joke at the edge of your perfect story. And I let it happen. Because I thought one day, maybe you'd reach back. Maybe you'd remember we were sisters. But today, you laughed at me. Again. And I realized I don't owe you silence anymore." Her lips trembled. Her hand clenched the side of her dress. "You could have just stayed home." I nodded. I thought about it. I almost did. But I came. Because even after everything, I still wanted to believe there was room for me here. That maybe you wanted me to see you happy. She didn't reply. People around us pretended to eat, to talk, to scroll on their phones. But the air had gone thick. Still. Then, softly, I said something I hadn't planned. "I hope you find real love, Sam. One day, the kind that doesn't require lies." And I left. Just like that. No dramatic exit. No final toast. I simply walked out of the estate and into the cool night air. The stars were out. It was quieter than I expected. Peaceful, even. I called another cab, and while I waited by the gate, I remembered the time when we were kids and Samantha got lost at the county fair. I was the one who found her, sitting behind a game booth, hugging her knees, eyes red from crying. She had looked up at me and whispered, "I knew you'd come. Funny how people change. Or maybe we just stop pretending." The cab pulled up. The driver smiled. I climbed in and gave him my address. As we drove off, I didn't look back. Because I had nothing to prove. Not anymore. I wasn't the joke. I was the one who told the truth. And the truth quiet. Painful. But honest was finally mine to keep. The days after the wedding were quiet. Too quiet, if I'm being honest. No calls, no texts, no questions. It was like I'd vanished from their family tree. Again. But this time, I didn't shrink from the silence. I let it be what it was. A boundary. A wall I didn't have to keep breaking myself against. I spent the next few days back at my apartment. Small place, 3rd floor, with a leaky faucet and a window that sticks when it rains. But it's mine. No one can barge in here. No one leaves cold notes on the fridge telling me to just smile more. I made tea every morning, lit a candle in the kitchen, and read the news while the city stirred awake around me. I even cleaned out that box I kept under the bed, the one filled with things you don't really want but can't throw away. Old photos, birthday cards, a necklace my sister gave me when we were still kids. It said best hers said friends. I held onto it for years. I don't know why. Habit. Maybe. Or hope. But on the 3rd day, I took that little pendant and walked it outside. I dropped it in the community donation bin near the corner store. Not to be dramatic. Just done. And I felt something loosen in my chest, like I could finally stand up straight. I was making soup that evening when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't have picked up. But something told me to. Hello. A pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Hey. It's Tasha. Tasha. One of Samantha's bridesmaids. The one who tapped the glass. The one who laughed. I stayed quiet. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up, she said. But I felt like I needed to say something. Still, I didn't speak. Let her do the work. There's a lot of talk going around. Sam's furious. You probably guessed that. Yeah, I said quietly. But I didn't call to defend her. Or me. Just to say that. I saw what happened. And I saw you. The way you sat through all of it. Calm. Alone. I don't think I could have done that. She took a shaky breath. Ryan's company is being investigated. Turns out your tip wasn't just right, it was the only reason the case moved forward. They'd been circling him for months but didn't have enough. That paper trail you exposed cracked it open. I sat down at the kitchen table, my spoon still in my hand. And Sam? I asked. She's trying to spin it. Said he lied to her. Said she didn't know anything. Maybe that's true. But the rest of us. She paused. We heard what she said about you. And I'm sorry. For laughing. It wasn't the apology I expected. But it was something. Thanks for saying that. I replied. Then, before we hung up, Tasha said something I won't forget. She always made us feel like you were the weird one, the dramatic sister. But you know what I saw that night? I saw someone who knew when to walk away. That's strength, not weakness. After she hung up, I just sat there. The soup went cold. The city outside glowed under orange lamps. And I let myself cry, not because I was sad, but because for the first time in years, someone saw me. Not as a problem, not as a joke, just as a person. A week later, my father showed up, unannounced. Of course, he always did that. I opened the door and he just stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes tired. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He walked in and looked around. The last time he visited was 3 years ago, back when I was recovering from surgery and Mom was too busy to stop by. He didn't sit, just stood near the window. I had no idea. He said, about Ryan? He nodded. Or about how much we'd let you fade out. I didn't speak. Not right away. He turned to me. Your sister's always needed the spotlight. Even when she was a child, we bent everything to keep her happy. And you never asked for anything. That's not true, I said gently. I asked. You just didn't hear it. He looked away, swallowed. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't expect that. Not from him. Not like that. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't enough to erase years of being left out. Talked over. Dismissed. But it was the first time he didn't try to justify it. He asked if I wanted to have lunch that weekend. Said he'd bring my favorite Vietnamese soup from the place near his office. I said yes. Not because everything was forgiven, but because sometimes, when someone cracks the door open, you can choose to close it, or leave it ajar. Just enough to see what happens next. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not a grand moment. Not a big apology. Just leaving space. The last I heard, Samantha moved out of their apartment. She's laying low, avoiding press. Blamed hacking and jealous exes. Her usual deflection routine. But the thing is, I don't care anymore. I don't wait for updates. I don't refresh her social feed. I've started something new. Joined a writing group. Started telling my stories, not just the sad ones, but the ones where I survived. Where I chose myself. And it turns out, a lot of people relate. Because there are more of us than we think, the quiet ones. The ones who were laughed at, overlooked, underestimated. We're not weak. We're just patient. And when the time comes, we know how to speak, not with rage, but with truth. The funny thing about peace is, it's so quiet. You almost don't trust it at first. I spent years living in constant tension, waiting for the next jab, the next cold shoulder, the next family gathering where I'd be asked to take the photo instead of being in it. So when things finally quieted down, when no one was calling to argue or explain or guilt me back into silence, I didn't know what to do with the stillness. But slowly, it started feeling like freedom. I changed a few things. I stopped checking our family group chat. I didn't leave it, that would have been a whole drama. I just muted it. Let the birthday wishes and forwarded prayers and wedding photos float on by without dragging me under. I started going on walks. Real walks, not just to the grocery store, not rushing somewhere, just walking, feeling the pavement beneath my feet, noticing things. The cracked sidewalk near the bakery, the way the old man at the corner always waters his plants at exactly 7 a.m. There's a strange beauty in routine, in being present. One morning, I passed a small park where a woman was teaching Tai Chi. There were only 4 people in the group, moving slowly with their arms extended. I stopped to watch. Something about the rhythm, the patience of it, the quiet grace, it pulled me in. She caught me looking and smiled. Want to join? I almost said no, out of habit. But then I heard myself say, yeah, okay. It was awkward at first. My arms felt stiff. My mind kept racing. But after a few sessions, I started to enjoy it. The way my breath slowed down. The way nothing else mattered during that hour. Just me. Just movement. Just the present moment. And isn't that something after all the chaos of the wedding, the humiliation, the betrayal? It was silence that finally healed me. Not revenge, not applause, just the simple act of choosing myself in small ways. A month later, I ran into someone unexpected. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was leaving the Tai Chi class, still holding my water bottle, when I saw her. My cousin Ava. She was sitting alone at a cafe table, scrolling on her phone, a half-eaten croissant on her plate. We hadn't spoken since the wedding. She looked up, eyes wide. Oh, hey. I smiled, unsure. Hey. A pause. Then she gestured to the chair across from her. You want to sit? I did. She closed her phone and gave me a look I couldn't quite read, like she was searching for the right way to start. You look good, she said. Thanks. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I am. She stirred her coffee slowly. You know, after the wedding, I wasn't sure what to think. Everyone was saying something different. Sam was crying. Your mom was panicking. The aunts were gossiping. I raised an eyebrow. And what did you believe? She looked down. Then back up. I believed you. Because you've always been the one who doesn't fake things. Even when it cost you. I felt a warmth in my chest I didn't expect. I didn't do it to hurt her. I said, I know. Ava replied, you did it because no one else would. Because we all let her get away with too much for too long. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. I've been writing, she said softly. About family, about the way we stay quiet when we're scared of breaking the image. Your story. It kind of gave me permission. That nearly broke me. Because for so long, I thought I was just surviving. I didn't know anyone was watching. I didn't know I was giving anyone else courage. But maybe that's how healing works. It ripples. You speak your truth, and someone else sees themselves in it. And slowly, silently, we all start to stitch ourselves back together. Not long after that, I got a letter. A real one. In the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Samantha. It was short. 2 paragraphs. She didn't say sorry. Not directly. She just wrote, "I don't know what to say to you. I'm angry. And I'm also ashamed. Maybe that's why I've stayed silent. Maybe I didn't want to admit how much of what you said was true. I don't expect us to be okay. But I wanted you to know that I'm starting to look at things differently, starting to look at myself differently. And maybe that's because of you. That's all." I read it twice, then a third time, and I placed it in the drawer beside my bed, not to hold on to hope, not to start again, but to remember that even when people don't change for you, they can change because of you. And that's enough. So here I am, not at a wedding, not behind a curtain, not biting my tongue, just me, in my small apartment, with a candle burning and tea cooling beside me. I still don't go to family holidays. I still haven't spoken to my mother, and maybe I won't for a while. But I've got people now. People who see me, who hear me, who don't ask me to shrink. I've got strength I didn't know I had. And most importantly, I've got peace. Not the kind that comes from everyone agreeing. The kind that comes from finally agreeing with yourself. That you mattered all along. That your voice counts. That you weren't wrong to speak. It's strange how life moves on. Even after something so sharp. So shattering, like watching your sister's wedding fall apart after she called you a joke. The world just keeps turning. Buses still run. Dogs still bark. Grocery lists still pile up. The healing isn't loud. It's not some dramatic swell of music like in the movies. It's quieter. It's in the morning when you pour your coffee and realize you're not angry anymore, not exhausted either, just whole. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. Some memories stay, not to hurt you, but to remind you how far you've come, like last week. I was walking past a bridal shop downtown, one of those fancy ones with the tall windows and mannequins draped in ivory lace. Normally, I'd just pass by. But this time, I stopped. There was a young woman inside, probably in her 20s, standing in front of a mirror, her mother beside her. They were laughing, genuinely. The daughter twirled, and the mother clapped. I watched them for a long time, not with envy but with something softer, a kind of distant ache mixed with hope, the kind of feeling you get when you see something beautiful and know it wasn't meant for you, but you're glad it exists. I turned to leave, but just as I did, the girl looked up and caught my eye through the glass. She smiled at me, and I smiled back. That's all. But it stayed with me. Maybe because it reminded me of what I used to wish for: a mother who showed up, a sister who clapped, a moment where I didn't feel like a guest in my own story. And maybe it reminded me that while I didn't get that from them, I've started building it with others, in smaller, quieter ways, like the woman from Tai Chi who now invites me to tea every Thursday, or Ava, who sends me voice notes about her writing, sometimes long, sometimes just a line or two, or even my father, who's learning awkwardly, slowly, how to be present without trying to fix or explain. Last weekend, he asked if I wanted to visit the old aquarium we used to go to when I was a kid. Just the two of us. And I said yes, because not all second chances come wrapped in apologies. Some come in the form of consistency, and I'll take that over empty words any day. About 2 months after the wedding, I got another letter. This time, from my aunt. She's the kind of woman who always sided with whoever had the most power in the room. When we were younger, she praised Samantha for her poise, her charm, called her the golden girl. She used to pat my head and say I was a little too sensitive for this world. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of cream-colored paper, folded neatly. I've watched our family sweep things under the rug for decades. I've watched strong women get silenced with guilt. I never thought I'd say this, but you did something I couldn't. You told the truth. And even though it broke things, maybe those things needed breaking. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do want you to know. I see you now. I really do. No signature. Just that. I held that letter in my lap for a long while. Because even if it came late, and even if it came from someone who once dismissed me, there was something powerful about being seen. Not pitied, not handled, just acknowledged. It doesn't undo the years. It doesn't erase the sting of being left out of birthday photos or whispered about at dinners. But it means something. It means I'm not invisible anymore. Now, I keep a small journal beside my bed. I write one line each night before I sleep. Not a full entry, just a sentence. Something I noticed. Something I felt. Last night I wrote, "You don't need everyone to believe you. Just yourself." And the night before that, peace is a full fridge and no unread messages that make your stomach twist. Some nights, the words are heavier. Like, she may never say sorry, but I don't need it to heal. It's not for anyone else. Just me. A quiet witness to my own becoming. Because for so long, I waited for someone to narrate my worth. To tell me I mattered. Now, I do that for myself. One line at a time. You might be wondering what happened to Samantha. The truth is, I don't know exactly. Last I heard, she moved cities, got a new job. She posts less now. No more selfies with champagne glasses or hashtags about fairy tale endings. Just the occasional sunset. A book cover. A quiet landscape with no caption. I don't reach out. And she hasn't either. That may never change. And I've made peace with that. Because not every story ends in a perfect reunion. Some just settle into distance. Not out of hate, but out of clarity. And I've learned, clarity is a gift. If I could go back to that moment in the wedding tent, back when she called me a joke, and I overheard it like some background noise that pierced the center of my heart, I wouldn't change what I did. I wouldn't stay silent. Because when someone laughs at your pain, your quiet, your presence, they're not seeing you. They're seeing the version of you that fits their comfort. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak, not to destroy, but to cut through the fog, to say I am not what you think I am, and walk away, not as a victim, but as your whole self. It's been nearly a year now. A year since the wedding. A year since the silence shattered. A year since I chose to speak not to destroy, but to protect something I'd almost forgotten. Mattered myself. People sometimes ask, was it worth it? They lower their voice like it's a dangerous question, like they're afraid to hear me say yes. Or worse, afraid to hear me say no. But the truth is, it wasn't about being worth it. It was about being done. Done playing a role in someone else's polished family portrait. Done shrinking into the edges of my own life. Done letting people rewrite the story while I held the pen and said nothing. And now, I'm writing a different story. One where I'm not the joke, or the problem, or the one they tolerate when there's an extra seat. One where I get to be seen. Even if only by myself. Especially by myself. The biggest change, though I stopped waiting for the big apology, it never came. And strangely, I'm glad it didn't. Because I don't want closure that's forced or hollow. I don't want a text that reads like a checklist. Sorry you felt hurt. I don't want a family dinner where everyone pretends like nothing happened, while every look across the table feels like a test. What I want and what I've finally found is peace that doesn't need permission. That peace lives in the quiet mornings, in my Tai Chi classes, in the voice messages from Ava where she laughs freely now. No longer under the shadow of someone else's perfection. It lives in my decision not to return to that group chat. Not because I'm angry, but because I know what happens there. and I know how I feel after. Some things don't need to be fixed. Some things just need to be left behind. I've started volunteering at a community center nearby, tutoring teenage girls in writing. The first day I walked in, I saw her, a 15-year-old with her arms crossed tight and eyes that didn't quite trust the world. Her name was Layla, and she reminded me so much of myself it startled me. Quiet, sharp, watching everything. She didn't want to write about her family, said she didn't have anything interesting to say. So I told her the truth. I told her how I used to feel invisible, how I thought I had to be louder, prettier, nicer just to be allowed in the room. And she listened, not with wide eyes, not with pity, just stillness, recognition. Then she picked up her pen and wrote something beautiful. Not because I gave her words, but because I gave her space. And maybe that's all most of us ever wanted: a little room to speak without being cut off. A little grace to be messy, to not have the perfect wedding or the perfect smile or the perfect sister. Just the truth, as it is. One night, I dreamt I was back at the wedding. But it was different this time. The tent was empty. No lights. No music. Just rows of chairs all facing the front where no one stood. I walked slowly through them. My shoes echoed on the wooden floor. And there, in the very front row, sat Samantha. Not in her dress, not with a crowd. Just her, in a plain shirt, looking tired. She turned to me. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know you were hurting like that." And in the dream, I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just said, "I did." And I woke up, crying, but calm. Because dreams don't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes they're just the soul saying what couldn't be said in daylight. Sometimes they're closure enough. Last week, I sent Layla a copy of a short story I published in a small magazine. She read it and said, "I didn't know grown-ups could write like that." I laughed and told her the truth. Most of us are still writing through the things that hurt us when we were her age. We just have better pens now. So here's the truth I leave you with: if you're still reading, your voice matters. Not because it's loud, not because it convinces everyone, but because it's yours. You don't have to wait for an invitation to speak. You don't need permission to outgrow the spaces that made you small. If they laughed at you, remember, that says more about them than you. If they called you a joke, remind yourself that you were the one who knew the truth all along. You don't have to prove anything to people who refuse to see you. Just live. Fully. Quietly. Fiercely. That is the most honest revenge there is. I'm not the girl at the edge of the photo anymore. I'm not the whisper they roll their eyes at. I'm not the shadow following someone else's spotlight. I am the light. And so are you. Have you ever stopped waiting for an apology and found something more powerful instead? Have you ever reclaimed your space by simply no longer asking to be welcomed? If this story touches something in you, even quietly, feel free to share. I'll be right here. Reading. No judgment. Just presence. Thank you for listening.